Welcome to Dogs Information. Fight, flight, freeze, fidget. Look at that list and notice something. 3 of them are loud, messy, and impossible to ignore. And every one of them gets the dog help. The 4th one is silent. The 4th one looks like manners. The 4th one gets a dog called well-behaved for the rest of its life. Nobody trains a dog out of freezing because nobody notices it happening. So, today I want to give you something better than a warning. I want to give you a way to tell the difference, because there are 2 kinds of stillness in a dog, and from your doorway at the moment you're grabbing your keys, they look exactly the same. Same dog. Same spot on the floor. Same silence. One of them means your dog is about to have a perfectly good nap. The other one means your dog's nervous system has run out of options. By the end of this, you'll know which one you're looking at in about 4 seconds. And stay with me till the end. There's a 10-second thing you can do tonight before you go to bed. It costs nothing, and it changes what tomorrow morning feels like for your dog. But before any of that, I need to say something that most videos on this subject will never say to you. Most dogs lying still at home are just resting. That's it. That's the truth. And you deserve to hear it early instead of being scared for 11 minutes first. Researchers set up cameras and actually watched what dogs do when they're home alone. The dogs without separation problems spent the overwhelming majority of their time calmly, boringly passive, lying down, dozing, doing nothing at all. In some of those recordings, the dogs were lying down for the vast majority of the hours they were left. Not because they were shut down, because that is what a relaxed dog does when the house is quiet and there's nothing to do. Stillness is a dog's factory setting. It's healthy. It's normal. It's most of them. So if your dog stretches out on their side, sighs, and melts into the rug the second you leave, you're not the villain in this story. You never were. Anyone who tells you that every quiet dog is secretly suffering is selling you guilt, and guilt is cheap. The reason I'm telling you this first is that it makes the rest of the video useful instead of terrifying, because the exception is real. Some dogs aren't resting. Some dogs are frozen. And the reason nobody catches it isn't that the signs are subtle. It's that the signs are silent, and silence is the one thing we've all been trained to read as good news. Let me show you what I mean with 2 dogs. Picture an apartment building. 2 doors across a hallway from each other. Behind the first door is a dog who loses it the moment the lock turns. He barks for 40 minutes. He shreds a cushion. He scratches long, pale grooves into the paint at the bottom of the door right at nose height where he's been trying to get through. His owner comes home to the damage, apologizes to the neighbors again, and books a trainer by Friday. That dog is going to get help. Behind the second door is a dog who lies down when her owner leaves and does not move. No noise. No mess. Nothing to come home to except a dog in the same spot. Her owner tells everyone she's the easiest dog she's ever had. She means it as a compliment. Now, here's where it gets uncomfortable. In 2021, a team of researchers published a study in Scientific Reports. They looked at what dogs actually do when they're separated from their people, and they sorted the behavior by the emotion driving it. What they found flips the whole picture. The dog scoring highest for fear whined, and they specifically did not bark. The barking, the scratching at the door, the early demanding noise, that pattern lined up with frustration. With a dog who wants something and is annoyed he can't have it. Not a dog drowning in fear. Read that again slowly because it rearranges everything. The loud dog is frustrated. The frightened dog is quiet. Which means the dog who wrecked the doorframe is getting a trainer this month. And the frightened one across the hall is getting called a good girl. I know what you're thinking because I thought it, too. Quiet could mean fine, or quiet could mean afraid. And you can't diagnose your dog from a single word. You're right. That's exactly why the 6 signs are coming, and they're the practical heart of this. But they'll only make sense to you after this next part. Because in 1967, 2 researchers took this exact question into a lab and got an answer. Then they spent the next 50 years believing the wrong version of their own results. They were studying dogs, and the correction they eventually published is the single most important thing in this video. Here's what happened. At the University of Pennsylvania, Martin Seligman and Stephen Meyer ran an experiment that would end up in every psychology textbook on Earth. One group of dogs was exposed to something unpleasant they could stop themselves. Another group got the exact same thing for the exact same duration with one difference. Nothing they did made it stop. Same discomfort, no control. The next day, both groups were put in a situation where escape was easy. All they had to do was step over a low barrier. The first group figured it out in seconds. The second group, in most cases, didn't try at all. They just stayed put. They didn't struggle. They didn't search. They didn't test the wall. They lay down and waited for it to be over. To anyone walking past, those dogs looked calm. They looked like the easy ones. For 50 years, the explanation was that the dogs had learned to give up. That they'd worked out their actions were pointless and quit. It's where the phrase learned helplessness comes from, and you've probably heard it applied to people. Then in 2016, Meyer and Seligman published a paper in Psychological Review. They revisited their own work armed with 50 years of neuroscience they didn't have in 1967. And they said plainly that they'd had it backwards. Passivity in the face of something bad isn't learned. It's the default. It's what a mammal brain does automatically when it's under sustained stress. Nobody has to teach a dog to shut down. Shutting down is what the wiring does when nothing else is left. What's learned is control. That's the discovery. The brain isn't scanning for the absence of control, deciding it's helpless and giving up. It's scanning for the presence of control. And when it finds it, a region behind the forehead reaches down and puts a brake on the circuit that produces the shutting down. Control is the thing that switches the freeze off. So, when a dog goes still and quiet in a situation they can't influence, they haven't decided anything. They haven't accepted anything. They haven't matured or settled or finally learned to relax. Their brain has simply hit the oldest setting it has. And from the outside, that setting is indistinguishable from peace. Which brings us to the part you actually came for. How do you tell them apart? 6 signs. None of them need equipment. None of them need a vet. And once you've got them, you'll never look at your dog on the floor the same way again. The first one is the body itself. Forget the position for a second and look at the texture. A resting dog is poured. There's no other word for it. They've given their weight to the floor, and the floor is holding them. And if you slid a hand under their ribs, you'd feel warm, dead weight. A frozen dog is gathered. The weight is still theirs. Muscle is holding it. They're not lying on the floor so much as hovering a millimeter above it, and everything is ready to go. Same dog, same rug, completely different animal underneath. The second is the shape they've chosen. Watch the hips. A dog who feels safe rolls off their hips. The back legs slide out sideways, the belly comes into contact with the world, and the whole spine goes into a comma. That's a dog making themselves harder to move quickly, and they only do it when nothing needs to move quickly. Now compare that to the Sphinx. Chest down, front legs folded underneath, back legs tucked in tight, head up or resting, but aimed. That's not a resting shape. That's a launching shape held very, very still. And here's the thing that should stop you cold. From the doorway in a dim room at 7 o'clock in the morning when you're late, both of those just read as the dog's lying down. Third, the eyes. This one is the fastest tell you have. Dog who's genuinely switching off has heavy eyes, half-mast, slow, lazy blinks that get slower. They'll look at you and let their eyes drift shut mid-look, which is the single most trusting thing a dog can do with their face. A frozen dog's eyes are open too wide, and they're doing something specific with them. Either they've gone hard and still and are locked onto a point in the middle distance, or they're avoiding you so deliberately that the avoidance itself is the signal. Sometimes you'll catch a crescent of white at the corner where there shouldn't be any because the eye is straining sideways without the head turning. The head is holding position. The eye isn't. Fourth, the breathing. And this one hides in plain sight. Panting reads as normal to us. Dogs pant. But a dog panting in a cool, quiet room who hasn't run anywhere, who has water, isn't cooling down. That's a nervous system that's been switched on and is trying to bring itself back down. It's self-soothing that you can hear from across the room. And its opposite is just as telling. Watch for the dog whose breath goes shallow and then stops for a beat, then starts again. Resting breath is slow, even, and boring. Frozen breath has punctuation in it. Fifth, and this is the one I'd keep if I could only keep one. Time. Watch what happens over the next 20 minutes. A resting dog unspools. They start out half alert, and then the head goes down, and then the hips roll, and 10 minutes. Later they've turned into a puddle, and they're snoring. The whole trend is downward. A frozen dog holds same tension at minute 1, same tension at minute 30. And this is not just something I'm claiming. When researchers compared them, dogs without separation problems wound down as the time passed, and the dogs with separation problems didn't. Their activity didn't drop off the way normal dogs did. That's the difference between a dog who's off duty and a dog who is very much still on it. Stillness that softens is rest. Stillness that stays exactly as tight as it started is not. And sixth, what happens when you come back? A dog who slept through it does a specific sequence, and once you know it, you'll see it every time. They get up slowly. They stretch front end down, back end up long and luxurious. Then very often they shake. Whole body, ears flapping nose to tail. That shake isn't about being wet. That's a reset. That's a nervous system closing one chapter and opening the next, and it's one of the best things you can see your dog do. Then they come and say hello. A dog who was frozen skips all of it. Either they detonate at you, frantic, unable to settle way past happy, or they don't come at all. You find them still in the spot, and it takes a minute before your dog is actually back in there behind their eyes. Now, one warning, because this cuts both ways. That same freeze shows up when you're touching them. If you go to stroke your dog and they go stiff under your hand and hold completely still, that is not your dog enjoying it. Veterinary behavior guidance is blunt about this one. That's your dog telling you they want the interaction to end using the quietest voice they have. And a dog whose quiet voice never gets listened to eventually stops using it and reaches for a louder one. So, that's your 6. Body shape, eyes, breath time, and homecoming. But there's still a question sitting underneath all of this, and it's the one that stings. If these signs are this visible, how has an entire species of devoted obsessive love-drunk dog owners been missing them? The answer isn't that you weren't paying attention. It's more interesting than that, and it's not your fault. Researchers went and checked this directly. They compared what owners believed their dogs did while they were out with what the dogs were actually recorded doing. And the results had a very particular shape. Owners were reliable about the loud stuff. Destruction, mess, the obvious wreckage. Where owners fell apart was on the quiet stuff. Restlessness, pacing, agitation, the behaviors that leave nothing behind. Think about what that means. You are not bad at reading your dog. You're bad at reading evidence that doesn't exist. A chewed doorframe is a message that waits for you to get home. A dog who paced the hallway for 3 hours and then lay down 2 minutes before your key hit the lock left you nothing. No note. No damage. Just a dog on the floor looking up being good. Damage gets diagnosed. Silence gets praised. And there's a second layer to this that's harder to hear because we help build it. When a dog is scared and we laugh at them, we teach them something precise. The thunder, the vacuum, the umbrella. That video we all send to the group chat. We teach them their fear is entertainment. So they stop showing us. And when a dog is scared and we brush past it, we teach them we're not useful in a crisis. So they stop asking. Both of those repeated gently over years, with nothing but affection in the room, produce the exact same animal. A dog who has learned to keep it to themselves. A dog who suffers quietly and politely and out of sight. Which is how you end up here. The frantic dog barks his way to a behaviorist. The frozen dog gets stroked on the head and told he's the best boy in the world for doing the one thing that should have worried you most. And I want to be very careful with you here because I know what a certain kind of viewer does with information like this. You go looking for the moment you broke your dog. Don't. Some dogs are wired for this. Owners have said it for years and they're right. There are dogs who arrive on day 1 already like this. They get the training, get the routine, get everything done right and still come apart when the door shuts. There are dogs whose littermates all have it, too. You didn't cause that. You inherited it. And the organization that handles more of these dogs than anyone alive, the ASPCA, puts it about as plainly as it can be. Don't scold your dog for this. Don't punish it. Anxious behavior isn't disobedience, and it isn't spite. It's distress. Punishing distress just teaches a frightened animal that the one safe thing left in the room isn't safe, either. So, no. Your dog going still isn't a verdict on you. But it might be a request. And now, you can hear it. Because here's the part that makes all of this worth knowing. Go back to what Meyer and Seligman found when they corrected themselves. The brain isn't looking for helplessness. It's looking for control. It's scanning constantly for evidence that what this animal does changes what happens to it. And when it finds that evidence, it reaches down and shuts the freeze circuit off. Sit with that, because it rewrites what your dog needs from you. The opposite of a frozen dog isn't a tired dog. You can walk a frightened dog 9 miles and bring home a frightened dog with sore feet. The opposite of a frozen dog is a dog with something to do that works. A dog who pushes a thing, and the thing responds. A dog who sniffs and finds. A dog who solves something. That's not enrichment as a luxury, and it's not a toy to keep them busy. That's you feeding the exact signal their brain is hunting for that their actions still land somewhere. Which is why the owners who cracked this almost always say the same thing. It wasn't more exercise. It was giving the dog a job. One of the most agreed with things I've ever read from. A dog owner said it exactly. Mental stimulation specifically was the point where things finally started to change. Not the walks, the thinking. So, a frozen food toy, a snuffle mat, a puzzle feeder, a handful of kibble scattered through the rug for a nose to hunt down. 20 minutes of real play a day. Something in that room that answers back when your dog does something to it. That's not spoiling them. That's the whole treatment in its simplest form, and build the leaving itself down instead of up. The long mournful 5-minute goodbye, where you kneel down and hold their face and tell them you're sorry, feels like love and lands like an alarm. You've just told a very perceptive animal that this moment is enormous. They believe you. Boring exits are a gift. Your dog reads your body better than your friends do. And your stress travels down the leash whether you approve of it or not. None of this asks you to be a perfect owner. That's not what your dog wants. And honestly, it never was. Your dog doesn't need you home all day. Your dog doesn't need you to feel guilty at your desk. Your dog needs a person who can tell the difference between a dog who's resting and a dog who's waiting for it to be over. That's it. That's the whole job. And you've just learned it. Now, one last thing, and I promised it at the start. Tonight, when you go to bed, sleep in an old t-shirt. That's it. Then tomorrow morning before you leave, drop it where your dog settles. 10 seconds. Costs nothing. Here's why it works. Dogs respond to their person scent more powerfully than they respond to food. More powerfully than they respond to toys. And the effect is strongest in exactly the dogs who struggle with being left. Your smell isn't a souvenir to them. To a nose that good, it's closer to presence. There's a reason dogs drag your socks and your shoes into their bed when you're out. They're not being naughty. They're self-medicating with the only piece of you they can reach. So, don't make them. Go find it. Leave it out where they can lie on it. If this changed how you see your dog on the floor, do me one favor and drop a comment telling me which of the 6 you're going to check tomorrow. I read them. And I'd genuinely like to know how many of you find a dog who's just fine, because I think it's going to be most of you. Your dog is talking to you constantly. Stillness is only one word in the language. There's another one they say every single day right in front of you that almost every owner reads as affection when it's actually something much bigger. I'll show you that one next. Thanks for watching, and like and subscribe, share please.